Boom. Hey, everybody, buckle up, Buttercup. It's time to go. Wow. So, according to the Bulletin of the Atomic Science, for 89 seconds to midnight. Makes me think of that song, 2 Minutes to Midnight by Iron Maiden, but we're actually closer now, 89 seconds. And tomorrow or today, it looks like it's going to be updated again. So, it's getting pretty intense out there. Now let's talk about it. We've got a lot of news to share, a lot of information. The first article that I wanted to share with you is from Politico. Gabbard warns of nuclear holocaust in ominous social media video. The director of national intelligence said the world is closer to the brink of nuclear annihilation than ever before. And this was on the 10th. So, director of national intelligence Tulsi Gabbard warned of a nuclear holocaust and chastised warmongers for bringing the world closer to the brink of nuclear annihilation, closer than ever before. In a foreboding video posted to social media on Tuesday, it's a 3-minute video, and Gabbard details a recent visit to Hiroshima, Japan. I don't know. It's Iran, Israel, Ukraine, Russia, the conflicts seem to be never ending. Now let's take a look at the map here real quick. There's a map I'd like to share with you. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you very much for joining us here at Leak Project. I know your time is invaluable. So this actually came out earlier in the year, and you can see we've got situations in Gaza, Colombia, Mexico, Ukraine, Sudan, Myanmar, Kashmir, Iran and its allies, and it's getting more intense. Israel and Iran broaden attacks in the fourth day of conflict. And Moscow claims it's not going to end the war in Ukraine until NATO pulls out of the Baltic states. Remember Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Well, the Economic Times, civil war has begun, according to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Author Robert Kiyosaki warns of global chaos, backs Bitcoin as the only safe haven, as well as gold. Now, according to the New York Post and other financial news outlets, several factors suggest that 2025 might be an opportune year to buy gold before a potential price surge. Read all about it at the New York Post. Do yourselves a favor. Check out noblegoldinvestments.com. There's some great opportunities right now at noblegoldinvestments.com. They are offering Leak Project listeners that convert their 401 IRA through Noble Gold Investments. If you qualify, you will be gifted a 10-ounce solid silver American flag bar at no additional cost. Add to your collection. Now, I want to give you some quick statistics. I don't know if you knew this or not, but about every 6 years, the US dollar loses half of its buying power. That means if you have $100,000 in your savings account today, it could feel like $50,000 by the year 2031, which is 6 years away. You'll see it every time you go to the gas tank, every time you buy groceries or pay the bills, prices are way up and your dollar is down. And there's a simple way to protect the value of your savings with something real, something proven, gold and silver. Assets that hold their value over time. That's why I trust Noble Gold Investments. They make it simple to protect your savings in physical gold or silver. No high pressure sells, no call centers, just honest guidance, one-on-one support, transparent pricing, A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Right now, when you open up a qualified account, Noble Gold will send you a free 10-ounce solid silver American flag bar as a thank you. Head to noblegoldinvestments.com today to learn more. Give them a call, 1-877-646-5347. Okay, now let's get into the news, shall we? Yeah, talk about it. So, first article I want to share with you is from the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Now, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists was founded in 1945. Albert Einstein, Robert Oppenheimer, and the University of Chicago scientists. They actually helped develop the first atomic weapons in the Manhattan Project, and the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists created the Doomsday Clock 2 years later. So, at the end of 2024, clock was moved closer than it's ever been, 89 seconds to midnight. And it looks like that's going to be updated here today, possibly. It'd be even closer with the conflict that we're seeing right now in Iran and Israel. Let's take a look at this. CNN.com. What you need to know. Fresh blasts. The conflict between Israel and Iran has entered its fourth day, with both sides widening their attacks. Overnight, Iran struck an Israeli oil refinery, damaged part of the power grid. Israel explosions were seen, and buildings. Now, Trump rejects an assassination plan. Two U.S. officials told CNN that President Donald Trump rejected an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denied reports of such a plan. Weeks to go. Israel's operation against Iran is expected to take weeks, not days, and is moving forward with implicit U.S. approval, according to the White House and Israeli officials. Trump acknowledged U.S. involvement, or Trump did acknowledge that U.S. involvement in the conflict is a possibility. You don't say. In other news, this is LRT.it, Moscow claims it will end the war in Ukraine after NATO states. Like that's ever going to happen. Moscow says they will end the war in Ukraine after NATO withdraws troops from the Baltic states. Russia's foreign ministry has told state news agency TASS. In an excerpt quoted by Newsweek on Monday, Ryabkov claimed the so-called root cause of Moscow's invasion of Ukraine was NATO's expansion to the east. The official responsible for talks with the United States has seemingly returned to the Kremlin's pre-2022 ultimatum for NATO to withdraw to its 1997 borders. Before the full-scale invasion, the Kremlin issued an ultimatum calling on Ukraine to disarm, abandon its NATO aspirations, and withdraw troops from the Baltic states and Eastern Europe. Baltic officials and observers say this could have paved the way for a potential Russian aggression against Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. NATO has deployed multinational battalions in the three countries as part of the deterrence package agreed following Russia's aggression against Ukraine in 2014. The number of troops has been bolstered following the 2022 invasion. The Economic Times, this is an interesting article, Civil War has begun. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, author Robert Kiyosaki warned of global chaos. Robert Kiyosaki, the best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has issued a chilling warning on social media, declaring that a civil war has begun. As ICE raids in Los Angeles reportedly erupted with violence, Kiyosaki paints a bleak picture of what lies ahead. A long, hot, violent summer, not just in the U.S., but around the world. The tweet has gone viral. Kiyosaki said the unrest isn't limited to the U.S. He pointed to growing turmoil in Japan, China, France, and other countries, suggesting that the world is entering a period of widespread instability. This turmoil is described in The Fourth Turning by Strauss and Howe, who posit that society operates in a series of 80-year cycles. Kiyosaki wrote he linked the current global discontent to previous historic turning points, such as the Great Depression, the American Civil War, and the American Revolution. And Kiyosaki believes it's a crisis of trust in money itself. Kiyosaki reiterated his long-standing belief that traditional fiat currencies, which he often calls fake money, are eroding wealth through inflation and central bank manipulation. The issue is of our bankers are stealing the wealth of the people via counterfeit money the central bankers print, he said. Kiyosaki says central banks are enabling a silent financial war on the population. His solution, move away from government-issued money and adopt what he calls sound money, gold, silver, and Bitcoin. All right. According to the New York Post and other financial news outlets, several factors suggest that 2025 might be an opportune year to buy gold. Right? Potential price surge, such as rising inflation, economic uncertainty, geopolitical tensions, central banks buying exuberant amounts of gold, potential interest rate cuts, the weakening U.S. dollar, and historically strong performance are all some of the key factors and why the New York Post and other financial news outlets suggest gold in 2025 could be the year. Now, let's get into the information right now that we have available between the war in Iran and Israel. The conflict in its day, both sides exchanging direct attacks. Israel initiated a large-scale offensive on June 13th, codenamed Operation Rising Lion, targeting Iranian nuclear and military infrastructure, including nuclear facilities, missile sites, air defenses, and military personnel. Iran has retaliated with its own missile and drone strikes against Israel, including hitting Tel Aviv and Haifa. These attacks were launched in response to the Israeli strikes and assassinations of key figures within Iran's military and its proxies. Israeli objectives: Israel aims to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons and appears determined to continue its attacks until Iran abandons its nuclear enrichment program. The response with Iran, nanu nanu, Iran continues to enrich uranium despite international pressure. It's also warned of further retaliation if Israel continues its attacks. International reactions: the U.S. has expressed support for Israel's actions, but is not directly involved in the military operation. President Trump has praised Israelis' actions and is pursuing nuclear negotiations with Iran, according to the New York Times. Other countries have condemned conflict and called for de-escalation. So the key aspects right now: the hostility between Iran and Israel has long played out through proxy forces in the region, such as Hezbollah and Lebanon and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Iran's nuclear program: Israel views Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat and has taken action to disrupt it. Both sides have engaged in targeted assassinations of key military leaders and scientists. And the conflict has escalated to direct military strikes between Iran and Israel in 2024 and now 2025. Now, this is an interesting article. And also, well, you know what? Let's get into this because this is like hot off the press. So, did you hear about what happened recently? Democratic lawmakers Melissa Hortman was assassinated and her husband. And what's very interesting about that is what they were about to vote on. So they were about to vote against her party, or she was about to vote against her party, lawmaker Melissa Hortman. She was going to vote on the Republican side instead of the Democratic side, and she gets taken out. Very weird, very, very weird. But let's look at this. TheIndependent.com. Minnesota shootings, the latest. Suspect Vance Boelter arrested after largest manhunt in state history. Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, were fatally shot in the early hours Saturday, the same day a state senator and his wife were also wounded. Vance Boelter, the man suspected of assassinating one Minnesota lawmaker and shooting another over the weekend, is in police custody, ending a nearly two-day manhunt described as the largest in state history. Boelter, 57, arrested Sunday, stands accused of fatally shooting Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, as well as wounding Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife at their respective homes on Saturday morning. Law enforcement agencies spent about 48 hours searching for Boelter, reportedly an evangelical Christian with a checkered employment history. More than 100 agents were deployed across the state. Now, police located the suspect's vehicle on the side of the highway in Sibley County, where officials reported finding valuable evidence. It was later cornered in local woodlands, surrendered to officers, and was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 of attempted murder. Justice will be served, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz promised at a press conference. Boelter's longtime friend and roommate described him as very conservative, opposed to abortion, and said the suspect had returned to their home and texted him on the morning after the attacks. Well, what's really interesting is if you go to, you can read about this Hindu Stan Times. Assassinated Dem lawmaker Melissa Hortman sided with Republicans before Minnesota shooting, voted to revoke. Melissa Hortman, a Minnesota Democratic State Senator, was fatally shot days after voting with GOPs to deny health care to undocumented immigrants. Melissa Hortman, Democratic State Senator for Minnesota, was killed by a crazy shooter wearing a rubber mask, had just weeks before crossed party lines by voting to deny illegal migrants health care coverage. Hortman was the sole member of her party to vote with Republicans in favor of eliminating taxpayer-funded health insurance for undocumented immigrants in this year's budget plan, the New York Post reported. She and her husband were shot dead on Saturday in Brooklyn Park outside of Minneapolis, just after the suspect shot at Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, critically injuring them. So days earlier, on June 10th, Hortman voted in favor of a state budget plan that denied illegal immigrants the age of 18 access to Minnesota care benefits. Very, very interesting. The timing, huh? Now, John Hoffman was also shot. John Hoffman is an American political and member of the Minnesota Senate of the Minnesota Democratic Party. He represents District 34, which includes parts of Anoka and Hennepin County and the Twin Cities metropolitan area. Hoffman and his wife, along with fellow Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, were targeted in a 2025 shooting spree. Hoffman and his wife have been hospitalized, while Hortman and her husband did not survive. So he's a part of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And then when you go read about Melissa Ann Hortman was an American lawyer and Democratic farmer labor politician from Hennepin County, Minnesota. She represented northern parts of the Twin Cities metropolitan area in the Minnesota House of Representatives from 2005 until her recent assassination just a few days ago, serving as the State House Minority Leader from 2017 to 2019 and as the 61st Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives from 2019 to 2025. During her tenure, she advocated for transportation, environmental rights, abortion rights, police reform, and gun control policies, and was the chief author of the state's solar energy standard. June 14th, Hortman and her husband were assassinated in their home in the Brooklyn Park, Minnesota area. The suspect was identified as 57-year-old Vance Boelter, who was allegedly attempting to assassinate Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman in a related shooting the same day, and he was taken into custody for a manhunt. So this is where things get very, very interesting about Vance Boelter. Very interesting. Check this out. And hello, everybody. How the heck are you? It's good to see you all. I hope you're having a beautiful day. I hope you're being safe. Be prepared, not scared. That's our motto here. Check this out. This is very, very, very interesting. So, all right. Boelter has been accused of both shootings. This is a mugshot of Vance Boelter. State corporate records show Boelter's wife filed to create a company named Praetorian Guard Security Services, LLC, with the same Green Isle mailing address listed for the couple on a website for the business. Boelter's wife is listed as president and CEO, and he is listed as director of security patrols. So look at this. The suspect in the Minnesota killings has quite the bio listed on his security company, Praetorian Security Guard Services. Dr. Vance Boelter has been involved with security situations in Eastern Europe, Africa, North America, and the Middle East, including the West Bank, Southern Lebanon, and the Gaza Strip. He brings a great security aspect forged by both many on-the-ground experiences combined with training by both private security firms and by people in the U.S. military. He's worked for the largest U.S. oil refining company, the world's largest food company based in Switzerland, and the world's largest convenience retailer based in Japan. Director of Security Patrol. That's freaking weird. That is bizarre, in my opinion. Well, like, who is this guy? And who paid this guy? Like, where does the money trail go? Did this guy just act like a lone wolf out of the blue? Because, there's got to be something more to this. And I'm sure the FBI and law enforcement and detectives are putting all the dots together, connecting all the dots and figuring out why this guy went out there to do what he did, who paid him to do what he did, what's going on. So weird. So, I mean, to me, in my opinion, when I see a guy like that and I see his bio, if his bio is legit, it could be some kind of like secret agent, man, for all we know. He could be a hitman for all we know. That's kind of what it seems like when you look at his bio, at least in my opinion, but I don't know. We're just going off of what the news is sharing with us. We've got major conflict in Russia and Ukraine, Iran, Israel. They're trying to get the U.S. involved. I mean, it seems like a tinderbox just ready to explode. So much conflict, and then we've got these riots. I was doing some dot connecting the other day, and if we go back 33 years ago, did you know that 33 years ago, LA was dealing with riots because of Rodney King? Now just think of the name, Rodney King riots, 33 years ago in LA. Now we have no King protests and riots in LA and across the country. So you go from Rodney King 33 years ago, 33 years later, you now have no King. Rodney King, no King. 33 years. Interesting. What an interesting numerological coincidence. Very, very interesting. So the same day that President Trump is put together the Washington, D.C. parade for the military, for the 250th anniversary of the Army, you have the opposite side of the political spectrum paying and coordinating for mass protests across the nation. I think they wanted to have like 1,800 locations approximately. So protesting the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, American dream. Hey, that all sounds great. Problem is when you have highly orchestrated protests that turn into riots that get violent, seem to have funding behind them, then you can have obviously a lot of conflict, and then you can have this. It's almost like you're creating a mindset in the population. You're creating history. We're going to look back at this 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. Our ancestors, our kids, our kids' kids, our kids' kids' kids can look back at this stuff, and there's going to see. Here's the thing: who controls what we learn about history? Who decides? Who really runs the information department for our history? We hear about what happens in the past, but we weren't there. Do we really know? How do we know that's what really happened 500 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago? We don't. We just have the information that's presented. So if you have a faction that can control the information through the decades, then you're basically going to be either brainwashed or brain dirty. Which is better? You want your brain washed from the dirty brain that's in there? We don't really know. We have to go on the data that's being presented, and then there's conflicting reports of so much history. I don't know. It's a fascinating time to be alive, folks. Now, there's been conflicts overseas for decades. So in a sense, it's kind of more of the same. They've stepped it up with the conflict. Israel doesn't want Iran to have nuclear capabilities, and so they continue with these preemptive strikes in hopes of eliminating these nuclear programs in Iran. Yet Iran is not going to stop until they get it, until they develop a nuclear weapon. They're going to keep doing it, and then they're going to use the preemptive strikes as a reason to go to war. So either way, I don't see a peaceful resolution with this. It's going to be more of the same. And how many other nations have nuclear capabilities now? I'm surprised Iran doesn't. I'm actually quite surprised Iran doesn't. But even if it doesn't, how difficult would it be for Iran to procure or to find some nukes that are already out there on the black market? Like, you've heard of the briefcase nukes, allegedly. There's supposed to be approximately 100 of these briefcase nukes. Now, this is an urban legend, so this is pure speculation right now. But I don't think it would be impossible for a nation like Iran with their resources to collect some of these weapons without actually having to build them in their own laboratory. I'm just thinking out loud here. Let's take a there's some information I want to share. Let's see if we can go to it right now. Where's that? Oh, I almost totally forgot about this. So check this out. This is from Reuters. It's an interesting article. Russia could send little green men to test NATO's resolve. German intelligence boss warns. Little green men, what are you talking about? Space aliens? Fake space aliens? You're going to create a fake space alien invasion and use that as some type of intel or some type of PSYOP campaign? Reuters. Russia is determined to test the resolve of the NATO alliance, including by extending its confrontation with the West beyond the borders of Ukraine, the Germany's foreign intelligence chief told the Table Media News Organization. Bruno Cal, head of the Federal Intelligence Service, said his agency has clear intelligence indications that Russian officials believe the collective defense obligations enshrined in the NATO treaty no longer had practical force. We are quite certain, and we have intelligence showing it, that Ukraine is only a step on the journey westward, Cal told Table Media in a podcast interview. That doesn't mean we expect tank armies to roll westwards, he added, but we see that NATO's collective defense promise is to be tested. Without detailing the nature of his intelligence sources, Cal said Russian officials were envisioning confrontations that fell short of a full military engagement that would test whether the U.S. would really live up to its mutual aid obligations under Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty. They don't need to dispatch armies of tanks for that, he said. It's enough to send little green men to Estonia to protect supposedly oppressed Russian minorities. So I'm a little confused. What the hell does that mean? It's enough to send little green men to Estonia to protect supposedly oppressed Russian minorities? Who are the little green men that you're talking about? Like, what's the subliminal messaging to that? What's the metaphor of little green men? You're talking about space aliens, fake space aliens, sending over UAPs that people think are aliens to cause some time. That's a very bizarre statement. Very bizarre statement. I want to read your comments on that. Yeah, very strange. Now, check this out. This is also interesting because recently the Assad regime in Syria collapsed just several months ago, December 8th, 2024, following a major offensive by opposition forces, primarily HTS and the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army. This marked the end of Bashar al-Assad's 14-year rule and the end of the Assad family's 53-year reign, which began with Hafez al-Assad's coup in 1971. A transitional government currently headed by President Ahmed al-Shara was formed March 29th of this year, 2025, succeeding the Syrian caretaker government. Following the regime's collapse, the situation in Syria remains complex with various challenges and uncertainties. So why am I bringing this up? Well, there are several prophecies, not only in the biblical scriptures, but also, if you've heard of Baby Vanga, her prophecy. So let's take a look at this real quick. It's very interesting. Do a screen share. Okay, several prophecies suggest a significant role for Syria, particularly Damascus, in end times scenarios, potentially leading to broader conflict or even the fall of civilization. If you look at Isaiah 17, speaks of Damascus becoming a ruinous heap, and some interpretations link this to a catalyst for the Ezekiel 38 war. Furthermore, Baby Vanga's prophecy suggests a major war igniting in the east following Syria's fall, potentially escalating to a third world war. So here's a detailed breakdown. Isaiah 17. This biblical passage describes the destruction of Damascus, stating it will cease from being a city and become a ruinous heap. Some interpretations, including one by Amir Sarfati, believe this prophecy is yet to be fulfilled and could be a trigger for the Ezekiel 38 war. Ezekiel 38. This chapter outlines a future war involving a coalition of nations led by Gog of Magog, targeting Israel. Some interpretations suggest the destruction of Damascus, as described in Isaiah 17, could be the event that sets off this conflict. Baby Vanga's prophecy. The Bulgarian mystic Baby Vanga, or Baba Vanga, Baba Vanga, is said to have predicted that a major conflict would begin in Syria, escalating into a third world war that would involve the West. This prophecy links Syria's fall to a broader global conflict. And also Hadith interpretation. Some Islamic Hadiths also mention a conflict in Syria, suggesting it will be a major battleground with bloodshed in specific cities and towns, and that once it calms down from one side, it will ignite from another, according to Reuters. So, that's not good. Have a lot going on, folks. Baba Vanga. Yes, thank you. Stu says, we are all confused, Rex man. The world has lost its minds. Much of the world has lost its mind. Ack. Listen to this. Israel attacked Iran exactly 33 weeks to the day after the last time they attacked Iran, Lebanon, and Syria. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Last year, when there were when the eclipse paths created like an X over the U.S., I did a bunch of decoding with the biblical scriptures and the astrotheology that's linked in the biblical scriptures, and then the totalitarian paths and the dates and the times. And I predicted an event was going to unfold a specific time after the eclipse path went over the U.S., and it was spot on. It was spot on. It was within hours. And you can actually go back and you can see that, specifically the date that one of the Iranian leaders or top officials died in a helicopter crash. They say it was from bad weather. Well, that was within hours of a prediction that we made here at Leak Project prior to that, based on the scriptures and the totalitarian paths. Because it appears that these scriptures, whether or not they're actually prophecy or a script or both, it appears that there's these cyclical events that take place that they most likely, when we're reading about these prophecies from Ezekiel 38 and Isaiah 17, they most likely took place back in the day as well, thousands of years ago, but they seem to be on some type of loop. It seems like civilization itself is on some type of loop where you have these rises and falls. You have these peaks and valleys and these dates and timelines and numerological codes. Now, the interesting thing is, I'm not convinced that these numerological codes are specifically played out by people. I would not be surprised. I'm actually more inclined to thinking that there's energies and intelligences behind the scenes that aren't necessarily physical, that manipulate the physical world and manipulate the physical timeline. And there's these anchor points, these nodes, these flags at particular times and particular places that are activated, whether or not they're performed fully by physical people. Now, obviously, you've got governments and militaries and mystery schools that will perform certain actions at specific dates. But what is the hand that rules behind them in shadows, or the strings that are pulling them behind the shadows? It appears something much more intelligent than most people, probably more intelligent than all people. I mean, as far as this intelligence and this ability and this power to control behind the scenes, we only see 0.01% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. Our brain filters out half of that. We hear a very small spectrum of the radio spectrum, the sound spectrum. So what is influencing physicality behind closed doors or right in front of us, just in a different frequency? I don't know, but it's quite fascinating to think about. And as Jeremy says, can't we all just get along? Well, as Rodney King said 33 years ago in the protests in LA, 33 years, Rodney King said, before the No King protest, Rodney King, No King, 33 years ago, Rodney King did say, can't we all get along? And I think that would be awesome. And you know what? Peter says, people have been saying civil war in the USA since the early 90s is coming. You're right. They've actually been saying it before that. And I don't think we're at civil war yet. So just because rich dad, poor dad made that claim, I'm not on that bandwagon. No, I think that there's definitely some turmoil and some division. There's definitely conflict, but I don't think we're anywhere close to a civil war. Not even close. There's actually a couple things that I could think of that could potentially trigger that I'm not going to talk about here. I might bring it up on Patreon just as a live action role play, entertainment purposes only kind of thing. But there's definitely two things that I could see that could be catalysts for something of that magnitude. But right now, it's just a drip. Keep dripping, keep dropping those little drips of fear into the masses. Keep trying to scare people in the mainstream media and keep people on edge, keep people in fear. So that way they're in the fight or flight mode. Did you know if you're in a fight or flight mode, you're a lot less likely to get, like, if you're in fear, typically people that are in fear are in a fight or flight mode. That's a lot easier to control versus somebody that has no fear and can come up with very constructive ideas and multi-layered possibilities, multi-level, multi-dimensional, whatever you want to call it. But if you're in that fear-based mindset, you're thinking about one or two things. If you're not in that fear-based mindset, you can think about a wide array of opportunities and possibilities. And our minds go, our actions go where our minds flow. So if the media is constantly pushing fear, the populations are going to be a lot more likely to back up these fear-based propaganda machines, which could lead to war, which obviously there's people that make a lot of money in war. And then there's people that, most people don't come out ahead in war. Most people are impacted for the rest of their life if they served in a war. Whether it was for right or wrong, they're going to have their own opinions about life, and it's going to have a huge impact. I have a lot of friends and family that served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it changes you substantially. So I don't like seeing conflict. It's really upsetting to me when I see these nations that are on the other, like thousands of miles away, blowing each other up and then trying to get other nations involved. Like, oh, we think you should help us with this conflict because you might be next, is kind of the mindset, right? Like Vietnam. Did we really need to go to Vietnam? I mean, I wasn't there. I just know about the propaganda machine. But was that something that the U.S. really needed to get involved in? Did we really need to get involved in Iraq and Afghanistan? I don't know. What are your thoughts? Actions go where the mind flows. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have post-traumatic stress. A lot of people have to listen to their own demons after conflict, or these created demons in their mind from conflict, from the things that they saw and experienced. It's terrible. Nobody wins in war except for the money funders. The money funders. Isn't that strange, though, that the suspect in the Minnesota killings has a bio listed and a security company, the Praetorian Guard Security Services? Something else is going on behind the scenes. Check this out. Really? I heard about that. That's I'll have to look that up, but that's really interesting about the 33 numerology. And somebody brought up like how the money funders are building all these bunkers, and like what's going to happen in the future. Why are all these money funders and these billionaires and multimillionaires building bunkers? It's nothing new, folks. I mean, they were doing that in the Cold War. They were doing that before the Cold War. It is nothing new. It's just more of the same. So just because there's billionaires out there now building bunkers doesn't mean that we're any closer to complete annihilation than 50 years ago. However, if you go to the bulletin.org, the bulletin.org. Let's just go back here real quick and take a look at this. Not 2 minutes to midnight, but actually 89 seconds to midnight. And this is going to be updated here pretty soon, it looks like, because of the conflict that's going on overseas. So I was reading some articles also about how Iran has shot down 3 F-35s, shot down 3 F-35s. So they're claiming. Listen to this. Military Watch magazine. Military Watch magazine. Iran shoots down 3rd F-35 fighter, captures 2nd pilot. What are the implications? Iranian state media on June 14th reported they shot down a 3rd F-35 5th generation fighter jet from Israel in the country's airspace, following 2 prior reported shoot downs and the capture of a female pilot. The aircraft was reportedly also shot down by ground-based air defense systems, with the pilot surviving and being apprehended. This has brought the total number of F-35 pilots captured to 2. Military Watch previously analyzed the likely veracity of Iranian claims in detail, including the strengths and limitations of the country's air defenses and the risks to F-35 squadrons as a result of the means by which they have been employed. With large majority of Israel fighter squadrons considered effectively obsolete because they rely on F-15s and F-16s using aging mechanically scanned array radars, the F-35 is relied heavily to spearhead attacks on Iranian targets and is the only fighter that retains a degree of survivability for penetration missions deep into Iranian airspace. While the F-15s and the F-16s fire missiles into Iran from safe distances, the F-35 can overfly high-priority targets, such as nuclear sites, to drop high-diameter gravity bombs. Those have a significantly higher penetrative capacity than air-launched missiles, and this is particularly valuable against fortified underground targets, such as parts of the Natanz nuclear facility. So what's the problem when you have F-35s being shot down and pilots taken into custody in Iran? Well, now Iran can get intel from those pilots, and also think of the intel Iran's going to be able to get with these F-35s, from the type of coatings that they're using for stealth to the actual computer systems and logistics and details. I mean, this is going to be a lot of information that Iran is going to be able to most likely reverse engineer as well. And they've already got 3 of these things. That's pretty substantial over the fact of just a few days, in my opinion. But then the article goes on to say that's not really that many F-35s, considering how many times the F-35s have flown into Iran and not been shot. So I don't know. I think that 3 of them over that amount of time is pretty substantial. Oh, man. Lucky says, pray for my dog. He's going to bite my neighbors. Pray for your dog. Oh, man. Oh, man. And Bones thinks that a lot of the headlines and a lot of the news, well, there you go. Jeremy says, getting our tech, sharing with Russia and China isn't good either. Gwendoline says, okay, next thing. That's interesting. Next thing. What would be the next thing? What else we got going on today? Oh, let's hear what Gavin Newsom says. This is Newsweek. Gavin Newsom responds to Donald Trump's ICE threat. Let's see what he has to say. According to Newsweek. California Governor Newsom's office has responded to President Trump's threats to send federal immigration agents to sanctuary cities. It looks like Stephen Miller got a hold of Trump's phone again. Diana Crofts Palayo, deputy director of communications at Newsom's office, told Newsweek. Trump wrote on Truth Social Media on Sunday that U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, must expand efforts to detain and deport illegal aliens in America's largest cities, such as Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, where millions upon millions of illegal aliens reside. Polling conducted by the Washington Post June 10th showed Trump with just 37% approval and 52% disapproval, giving him a net rating of -15, the worst among the polls listed. A similar negative margin was found in Quinnipiac University poll from June 5th to 9th, which recorded a -11 net approval on immigration. That is down from -3 in February, while AP NORC reported a -7 net rating, down from -2 in May. So what are people saying? Well, President Donald Trump on Truth Social, these and other such cities are the core of the Democrat power center, where they use illegal aliens to expand their vote base, cheat in elections, and grow the welfare state, robbing good-paying jobs and benefits from hardworking American citizens. These radical left Democrats are sick of mind, hate our country, and actually want to destroy our inner cities, and they're doing a good job of it. This is what President Donald Trump said on Truth Social. This is not what I'm saying. This is what President Trump said on Truth Social, and you can read about it at newsweek.com. I will leave a link in the video description box. You know, it's nasty. Politics, in my opinion, are nasty. Politics, it's like you can clump politics in with war. Like, it's just, they're always fighting. They're always battling. It doesn't really seem like they care about the people, in my opinion. It seems like they care more about their political party. Because, in my opinion, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think. Maybe I'll talk about it on Patreon, but you know what? America's a pretty awesome nation, and I love it here. And I could see why people would want to come into America, because there's a lot of opportunity here. It's a beautiful nation. Yeah, it has its problems. What nation doesn't? But I can see why people from other countries want to be here, because it's awesome. I mean, you can make money. You can have, you can buy acreage out in the woods and the mountains. There's just so much to do out here. There's so many businesses and so many different ideas. It's a melting pot of multiculturalism, which can be awesome and amazing. I think it's awesome. So I'm not upset with people coming here and wanting to make the nation a better place. I think that that's great. And you know what? There's a lot of people that are here illegally that work their asses off, that work harder than people here. So I just, where do you draw the line? I don't know. I don't know where to draw the line, but I think most people that are here, whether illegally or not, want to do the right thing and have a good heart. They care about their family. They care about people. They just want a better life for their family. And I think overall, a very high percentage of people, they just want to have a good life. They don't want to burn it down. Yes, there's a small percentage of psychopaths out there. There's a small percentage of militants out there that are illegal. But the majority of people that are here because they want to be here and provide a better life for their family. Now, when you see news showing protests that turn into riots, and you've got people with masks on standing on top of cars that are burning, and they're holding other nation flags, to me, I see that as a big red flag. I don't think most people are like that. I think that, to me, that looked like almost like, have you seen the film where there's the real estate agent trying to sell a house and they're out in the woods? So the real estate agent tells her friend, she's like, look, I've got these people to come and look at the house. So when they come to look at the house, I want you to go out there and pretend like, I want you to go behind those cardboard cutouts of those deer, and I want you to cue the deer. So when these people come to look at this house, you can be like, oh, cute. Look, honey, we got to buy this house. There's even deer out back. Cue the deer. Cue the deer. That's what I think of when I see the media filming certain events that just seem to be like, cue the deer. Get that deer out now. Let's cue the deer. But guess what, folks? When you have thousands of people in a protest that turns violent, a lot of times the IQ of that protest, people that might have went into that protest thinking they're just going to be calm and collected. They just want to see what's going on. Well, tensions rise and IQs lower. It's a fact. Most people's IQs, when they get in large groups of protests, the IQ actually drops. So I'm just saying. I've been to the Mark Twain Forest. I was out there back in 2013. I worked out there for about a month. And I remember I did a bunch of exploring out there. Had a really good time, actually. It was fun. Had a lot of fun. Checked out the Mark. I think I actually spent the night in the Mark Twain Forest. And that's when I was driving a freaking Subaru truck. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I had a Subaru, what are they called? Subaru Brat. And everything that could have gone wrong with that car went wrong with that car. Everything went wrong with that car. But I remember spending the night in the Mark Twain Forest and hearing these weird noises. I heard all these weird sounds. And I slept in the back of the Subaru where like I didn't even have enough room for my legs and it sucked. But it was cool at the same time. Anyway, I digress. Oh, man. It is a funny farm. Karen says, our family filled out papers and waited 10 for citizenship. That's all they have to do. 10. What do you mean? 10 years? You had to wait 10 years? That's crazy. That's a long time. See, I lived in San Antonio for like 8 years. And there is a huge Hispanic population in San Antonio. And there's a lot of people in San Antonio, at least when I was there, that were most likely there illegally, but they were working hard and they weren't, other than being there illegally, they weren't breaking the law, except for that one thing. So I don't know. It's very personal for many people. So I don't like to get in the middle of it. If your opinion is your opinion, and that's your right to have your opinion. So that's one of the things I love about America is most of us have the right to have our own opinion on certain things, on most things anyway. But it seems like there's certain things that even in the land of the free, we're not supposed to have our own opinions of. They make it more the land of the fee, if you get that way. The land of the fee, home of the slave. No, it's the land of the free, home of the brave. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to be. What else we got? What else is going on in the news? What else do we have going on? Let's see here. In other news, did you hear about the technology that can actually take your brainwaves and upload your brainwaves to the cloud? It's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. I know I want all my memories uploaded in the cloud for everybody. Like, dude, what's Rex thinking about? Let's upload it real quick and see. He's talking about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but he's skeptical. All right, check this out. CNBC.com. As G7 leaders meet, allies ask, is Trump with us or against us? The group of seven, or G7, representing the world's top economies, is meeting in the Canadian Rockies this week. The issue of U.S. President Donald Trump's trade tariffs remains a source of deep tensions between allies and the U.S. Trump hasn't attended a G7 summit since 2019 after upsetting the group the year before by withdrawing U.S. support for its joint communique. Ongoing trade instability and turmoil in Ukraine and the Middle East are set to dominate talks as leaders of the world's largest advanced economic powers gather in Canada for this year's Group of Seven summit. With uncertainty over those major issues largely arising from the White House's economic and foreign policy, allies are likely to ask whether the U.S. President Donald Trump stands with them or against them on major geopolitical points. The G7 compromises the U.S., the U.K., Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, as well as representatives from the European Union and other guest participants. The leaders of Australia, Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia, Ukraine, South Africa, and South Korea have also been invited to this year's gatherings. These summits aim to facilitate a consensus on the biggest global economic and geopolitical challenges and to coordinate actions to tackle them. There you go, folks. G7. I think the Bilderberg group met last week. Bilderberg meeting 2025. This didn't make the news much, did it? No. Oh, yeah. How about that? It's all over bilderbergmeetings.org. Hold on. I have to verify I'm a human. They verified it successfully. Okay. The 71st Bilderberg meeting took place from the 12th of June to the 15th in Stockholm, Sweden. The 71st Bilderberg meeting took place from June 12th to June 15th in Stockholm, Sweden. As ever, a diverse group of political leaders and experts from industry, finance, academia, and the media have been invited. The list of participants is available on bilderbergmeetings.org. This year's topics for discussion: transatlantic relationships, Ukraine, the U.S. economy, Europe, the Middle East, authoritarian axis, defense, innovation, and resilience, AI, deterrence, and national security, proliferation, geopolitics of energy and critical minerals, depopulation, and migration. So that's what they talked about. They said they invited the media, but geez, did anybody even hear about the Bilderberg Group? You had to do some research to figure that out. Max says, my mom across the border with his green card overstayed his green card, and I was born in North Carolina. I am an anchor baby from illegal aliens, and I'm damn proud of it. Right on, Max. Right on, man. Max, he's our man. If he can't do it, no one can. Bone says, the eye in the sky. Try asking for the minutes of the meetings from Bilderberg. That's a good point. We should see if we can get that. Like, was it filmed? Did anybody record it? Can we get access to it? Because it seemed like last week all they were telling us about was war, but not what was going on with the Bilderberg Group. Very little news coverage on that. Very, very little news coverage. The only reason I knew about it is because somebody was leaving comments in the comment section. Rex, the Bilderberg's going on, Bilderberg Group's going on, and you're not even talking about it. Thanks for the reminder. Bilderberg, because they love you so much. The Bilderbergs, the ones that love you more than just about anybody, they love you. So the Bilderberg Group was founded in 1954. Every year, between 120 and 140 political leaders and experts from industry, finance, academia, and the media are invited to take part in the meeting. About 2/3 of the participants come from Europe and the rest from North America, approximately 1/4 from politics and government, and the rest from other fields. I want to go to the Bilderberg meeting. I want to see, I would like to be a reporter for that event. The Bilderberg meeting is a forum for informal discussions about major issues. The meetings are held under the Chatham House rule, which states that participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speaker nor any other participant may be revealed. Thanks to the private nature of the meeting, the participants take part as individuals rather than in any formal or official capacity, and hence are not bound by the conventions of their office or by pre-agreed positions. As such, they can take time to listen, reflect, and gather insights. There is no detailed agenda, no resolutions are proposed, no votes are taken, and no policy statements are issued. Media contact, you can actually get a hold of. You can send out an email and ask for more information. They even leave the media information there for you to send them an email. Remember, folks, it's because they love you so much. Hey, Anthony, what's going on, man? Oh, that song by Parsons is great. Yeah, that's a good song by Parsons. I like Parsons. One of the greats, great lyrics. Well, I hope you're all doing amazing and having a beautiful day. And thank you very much for watching the show. Jump on over to our Patreon page. I'm going to be uploading an exclusive interview I had with a Marine here in a little bit. Chris, really nice guy. We were actually best friends back in like early high school and middle school. We didn't see each other for over 30 years. And now it's like we never missed a beat. But jumping over to our Patreon page, we've got exclusive content, exclusive podcasts you're only going to find on our Patreon page. And it definitely helps out Leak Project. It's only like $5 to be a Patreon. So your support greatly helps Leak Project. And it'll definitely be worth it to you because you'll get hundreds of hours of exclusive content. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Thank you very much. I appreciate you also. Cheers, and be the change you want to see